You own insoles, maybe orthotics from a podiatrist, maybe the gel ones you grabbed from the pharmacy because your knees hurt. Maybe you have given up on certain shoes entirely, the ones you love but can no longer wear for more than an hour before your feet start punishing you for it. You did not think too hard about why, but for 99% of human history, the moment your knee gave out on the trail was the moment the group kept walking without you. There was no sitting this one out, no delivery app, no car in the driveway. You walked or you fell behind, and falling behind meant dying. The fact that walking is now painful for so many of us is not a modern problem. It is a very old one. And the reason it hurts goes back further than you would ever expect. Your back hurts, your knees ache, your feet complain after a long day on hard floors. That is not bad luck. That is a bill. One your species has been accumulating for 3 million years, and you are the one being asked to pay it. To understand what the bill is actually for, researchers looked at one of the last populations on Earth still living the way our ancestors did. The Hadza people of northern Tanzania do not own cars, do not use agriculture, and do not sit at desks. They walk to survive, tracking game, digging for tubers, finding water across rough East African terrain. A researcher at Hunter College named Herman Ponce spent years measuring exactly how much they walk. The finding is stark. Hadza men walk an average of 11.4 kilometers every single day. 11.4. The average American walks roughly 2.4 kilometers. That means the Hadza cover nearly 5 times the daily distance of a modern adult, and they do it into their 60s, 70s, and 80s without back surgery, without orthotics, without a single statin. Their blood pressure does not rise with age, their waistlines do not expand, heart disease and diabetes are functionally absent from their population. The body that aches in your office chair was built for what the Hadza do every morning before breakfast. The pain is not a design flaw, it is a mismatch between the design and the life you are living inside it. The oldest proof of upright walking is not a bone, it is a footprint, and it is sitting in stone in Tanzania right now, 3.66 million years old, and the arch pressed into it looks exactly like yours. In 1978, archaeologists excavating the Litoli site in northern Tanzania uncovered something that stopped the entire field cold. Preserved in volcanic ash were the footprints of at least 3 individuals who had walked across the landscape 3.66 million years ago. Not shuffling, not knuckle-dragging, walking fully upright, heel to toe, at a steady pace of roughly 1 meter per second, the same casual walking speed you use crossing a street today. The adducted big toe that cannot grasp like an ape's, the pronounced longitudinal arch, the precise heel strike to toe-off sequence, all of it was already there, fully formed, 3 million years before the first city existed. The preservation is almost unbelievable. A nearby volcano had erupted a specific type of ash, natrocarbonatite, rich in alkali elements and highly reactive to water. A light rain fell. The ash transformed on contact, turning from dry powder into a soft, wet paste with the exact consistency of wet cement. 3 individuals walked across it, their bare feet sinking into the alkaline sludge, the material molding perfectly to the contours of their arches. Within days it hardened into stone, and a subsequent eruption sealed it completely. What they preserve is not just anatomy, it is gait, and it is something else, something the data almost buries. One of them, the smallest of the 3, is not making their own path. They are stepping carefully, deliberately, inside the footprints of the person walking ahead. Each foot placed exactly in the impression already made, matching the stride, trusting the ground that someone else already tested. We do not know why. Navigation across treacherous ground, social cohesion, something else entirely. We will never know. But 3.66 million years later, the choice is still there in the stone, pressed into volcanic cement by a foot that carried the same argument with gravity that yours does every single morning. Here is the part that overturns the story most of us were taught. The standard explanation for why humans stand upright goes like this. Millions of years ago, the African forests shrank. Our ape ancestors were forced out of the trees and onto the open savanna. Standing up helped them see over the tall grass, spot predators, and carry food with their freed hands. Bipedalism was a savanna invention, ground level, practical, a response to losing the trees. That explanation is wrong. In 2007, researchers published a year's worth of observations of wild orangutans navigating the forest canopy in Sumatra. Over 3,000 documented instances of locomotion across different branch types. On thick, stable branches near the trunk, the orangutans move on all 4s. But when they need to reach the thin, flexible branches at the canopy's edge where the ripest fruit grows, they do something unexpected. They stand up. They walk fully upright on 2 feet, using their arms only for balance, distributing their weight across multiple thin branches simultaneously to avoid snapping any single one. The strategy is efficient, stable, and energetically economical. It is arboreal bipedalism, and it predates any savanna by millions of years. Our ancestors did not evolve to stand up when they left the trees. They were already standing up inside them. When the forests of the Miocene began to thin and fragment, early hominins did not learn a new way of moving. They simply brought their existing one down to the ground and kept walking. The chimpanzees and gorillas that stayed in the trees eventually came down too, but they adapted differently, evolving knuckle walking as a completely new ground-level solution, which means the animal dragging its knuckles through the forest is not the primitive one. We are the conservatives, they are the innovators. Here is why it still hurts, and why it will always hurt, at least a little. Your foot is not built for the pavement, it is built for a branch, and the distance between those two surfaces is the entire source of every podiatric complaint you have ever had. The human foot is made of 26 individual bones, a number that makes complete sense in a forest canopy, where extreme flexibility and independent toe movement are critical for gripping and balancing across three-dimensional space. A paleoanthropologist at Dartmouth named Jeremy De Silva has spent his career studying exactly what happened when that foot came to the ground. When hominins began walking bipedally for hours across flat terrain, natural selection could not simply fuse those 26 bones into a single rigid blade, which would be far more efficient, and is exactly what carbon fiber prosthetics for sprinters look like today. Instead, evolution had to work with what already existed. The intrinsic muscles that once controlled the fine grasping movements of the divergent big toe were repurposed to support the longitudinal arch. The flexible, mobile foot of an arboreal ape was gradually stiffened from the inside using the components it already had. De Silva describes the result as the biological equivalent of duct tape and paper clips. It works. It has worked for 3 million years, and it carries you across the floor every morning without you thinking about it. But it leaves every modern human structurally vulnerable to fallen arches, plantar fasciitis, bunions, shin splints, and twisted ankles. Conditions that are essentially absent in wild living quadrupeds. A four-legged animal can survive a foot injury and keep moving. A bipedal human with a minor foot sprain is immediately incapacitated, which is exactly why our species became so deeply dependent on one another for survival. The fragility was always part of the arrangement. Your foot is an improvisation, a brilliant one, but an improvisation nonetheless. So why did any of this happen? Why would a species accept chronic pain, structural fragility, and a foot made of repurposed components, when 4 legs would have been mechanically superior in almost every way? The answer is heat, and it is more specific than it first sounds. Standing upright on 2 legs changes your relationship with the African sun in one precise way. Think about standing in direct midday sun with your back exposed, your entire torso facing upward, absorbing radiation across its full surface. Now think about standing straight, arms at your sides. That is the difference between a quadruped and a biped under the same sun. One is a solar panel, the other is a blade. A bipedal body presents roughly 60% less surface area to direct overhead solar radiation than a quadruped of the same mass, and simultaneously elevates the torso into cooler, faster-moving air currents, accelerating convective cooling across the skin. The result is a body that can stay active in midday heat that forces every other large predator into shade. Lions stop hunting at midday. Leopards rest. Cheetahs wait. But a bipedal hominin walking upright through 40-degree savanna heat, losing comparatively little water, needing comparatively little to drink, could forage across distances that no 4-legged competitor could match during those hours. The territory available in the middle of the day belonged entirely to the species that figured out how to stand up in it. The pain in your back is the structural price of that advantage. The S-shaped curve of your spine, which causes herniated discs, lower back fractures, and the chronic pain that now affects more than half of all adults, exists because a vertical column fighting gravity is the only architecture that allows a bipedal body to balance. It was not engineered for comfort, it was engineered for survival at noon in equatorial Africa 2 million years ago. You got the deal just had costs buried in the fine print. There is one more layer to this, and it is the part that explains why some people suffer more than others. Some of your vertebrae are shaped like a chimpanzee's. Not similar, not close, statistically indistinguishable. Research comparing modern human spines to chimpanzee and fossil hominin bones found that a portion of the human population carries vertebrae that have never fully crossed over from the ancestral arboreal shape into the derived bipedal one. The bones that worked perfectly for an ape gripping branches were never fully redesigned for the vertical weight-bearing demands of habitual upright walking. And the people who carry those ancestral shapes are significantly more prone to disc herniation, Schmall's nodes, and severe chronic lower back pain as a result. Not because they sit too much, not because they skip the gym, because the bones themselves have not caught up with the locomotion they are being asked to support, and they may never fully do so, because natural selection moves far more slowly than the pace at which early hominins left the forest canopy. Your back pain may not be about your lifestyle, it may be about which bones your particular ancestors handed down to you. The global back pain epidemic is not purely a product of office chairs and sedentary lifestyles, it is partly a morphological inheritance. The ghost of a tree your ancestors left behind 3 million years ago, still living inside your vertebrae, still making itself known every time you sit too long or lift something at the wrong angle.